So today I wanted to take a look at the 1991 film The Fisher King, which is actually a very interesting story. This follows I guess you could say, the ill thought out events of a shock jock named Jack Lucas, who is played by Jeff Bridges. At the beginning of the film, we kind of open up with I guess you could say, somewhat of a lonely or a desperate man. He's in love with some girl and he wants to approach her. Jack discourages him from approaching her because he has had numerous bad results in the past, and he just goes on to say that she's, I guess you could say, yuppie class. They're completely separate and he just shouldn't even mess with those people. So this triggers a mass killing in a bar called Babbitt's, which apparently is a bar that the girl frequents. This event also results in the killing of Perry's wife, Perry, who is of course played by Robin Williams, and he kind of goes into, I guess you could say, a catatonic state. He's institutionalized for a while. He's later released, doesn't have anywhere to go, so the landlord of his apartment building allows him to live in the basement, since obviously he can no longer keep up rent, since he's just very mentally unstable, not working, and just kind of homeless basically. So this story parallels with Jack because during the period that Perry was institutionalized, Jack has been going through a heavy depression. He's dealing with the weight of his careless action and he feels that he is responsible. He's no longer working as a jockey and he's pretty much just occasionally helping out at his girlfriend's video store. One evening when Jack goes out drinking, he basically just kind of stumbles upon Perry. While Jack is wandering around, the one thing that I find interesting is that a child, assuming that Jack is also homeless just because he looks very rugged, hands him a wooden Pinocchio doll, which he kind of just straps onto his ankle, carries it around with him during his drunken travels. But this doll really does take on a symbology of its own later throughout the film. So of course, Jack, having learned that Perry's wife died in the bar slaying, he kind of feels responsible, or rather he takes it upon himself to help Perry in kind of landing a girl that he's taken an interest in. So he devises a plot in which the girl Linda, she wins a free 1-year membership to Jack's video store. She's kind of brought into the store and they kind of just polish up Perry, make him presentable just so that he can woo Linda. But I think a very funny scene is when they're trying to get Linda to come in. She's obviously reluctant, hesitant, doesn't want to be bothered, and there's this funny song and dance number in which Jack kind of sneaks in one of Perry's homeless buddies and he's dressed in a very gaudy dress. He's just very, very loud, boisterous, I guess you could say, and he sings just this very crazy song to Linda, trying to entice her to come in, and it is just so hilarious, just the bizarreness. And he's up on a desk, he's singing, he's dancing, he hands her balloons, so it's the whole 9 yards. It's actually really funny, but obviously this kind of piques her interest. She finally comes into the video store. They're kind of just trying to keep her interest, just kind of trying to see if there's any way that they can kind of figure out a way to get Perry and Linda together, which luckily Linda happens to take an interest in I guess you could say, the manicured nails of Jack's girlfriend, which apparently she used to work at a beauty salon or nail parlor or whatever you call it. So she arranges for Linda to come by the apartment later. She will do her nails, and of course later this is where the whole kind of dinner double date thing happens. And that's also just a very adorable scene in itself, is just the fact that, you know, Linda, as we get to meet her, she starts off as a very rigid, very bitchy person, and she actually just kind of loosens up, and we realize that she's just very guarded. She feels neglected to a degree, she feels dumped on, and so we basically just realize this is all just defense mechanism, but she's actually just a very tolerable person underneath all of that rough exterior. The restaurant scene itself, as I said, is just very adorable. Between Perry and Linda, you kind of see them just either ping-ponging or fighting over dumplings that kind of fell onto the table. Linda's very clumsy herself. She's constantly dropping stuff. Perry, I guess, pretends to be clumsy so that she won't feel as self-conscious. So it's definitely very interesting, and you can tell he definitely likes her. But towards the end of that evening, unfortunately, Perry has somewhat of a relapse. He's reinstitutionalized, and he's kind of basically become Sleeping Beauty. Jack is kind of trying to get him to come out of his slumber. Linda visits him occasionally. It's during this one scene where Jack kind of finally decides to go ahead and steal a grail from a wealthy person's home. Apparently, Perry, to some degree, feels that having this grail will better his life to a degree, and of course, Jack, still wanting to set things right, even though he really doesn't want to, goes through with it. And of course the grail itself, leading back to the Thorian lore, just kind of, I guess you could say, the rejuvenation of life to some degree. So in a way it's kind of symbolic of Perry starting over or getting his life back. During this time as well, while Perry is in the hospital, we kind of realize that Pinocchio is more symbolic of Jack actually finding his way back to himself, re-becoming human, because obviously he's become unsocialized, he's disassociative to a degree. He pushes away his girlfriend constantly throughout the course of the film, and through the process of helping Perry, Jack kind of just becomes human again, and he learns to feel, he learns to reconnect. He realizes that he really does love and care for his girlfriend, and you know, eventually things are set right, but there is just so much subtle storyline which is just very read between the lines going on in the background, aside than the main storyline itself. So there really is just a lot more going on than meets the eye. But it really is just a very well played film. There are definitely some humorous moments in it, in the movie as well. One of those moments being when Perry is just kind of eating over at Jack's house. They're preparing him for the date later that evening, and he kind of starts hitting on Jack's girlfriend, which is really funny because she's kind of discriminatory towards him at first for being homeless, and she just really doesn't want to talk to him, doesn't want anything to do with him, and just all of a sudden, out of the blue, I guess Perry just kind of picks up on how Jack neglects his girlfriend. So he kind of starts hitting on her, telling her that she's a beautiful woman, and you know, a body like hers should not be allowed to go to waste, and he offers to make love to her on the kitchen table, which, you know, it starts off as being very awkward, but you can see she kind of gradually sees the humor in this, and she becomes very flattered by the fact that somebody's even willing to pay attention to her. So it's definitely a very funny scene in itself, but obviously over time Perry is just kind of able to sort out his issues. He returns to the world of the living, and he really does get that new beginning, or that renewal that he was wanting. But it definitely is an amazing film. It's definitely an incredible piece of dramatic acting on all the actors' parts, and every single role is just extremely well played. But, you know, it's definitely one of those films that you will enjoy watching again and again. But, you know, even just for a first time view, it's just such an amazing treat. There's just so much depth in the film. And it really is just an amazing movie. If you haven't seen it, then you should definitely check it out. It's definitely among the best of the Robin Williams dramatic roles that he has played. But that is all I have for you guys today, and I will talk to you later.